Hi, friends, and welcome to the Energetic Reset. Recode your body, your leadership, and your life for 2026. This is a 3-part end of the year series, more of like a masterclass series, if you will, for all of you high achieving women listening. And I designed this series to help you recalibrate your body, your energy, and your identity so you can walk into 2020's clarity and power and a nervous system that can actually hold the success that you're building. Because I think by now we all know, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, or if this is your first time listening, we here in this community believe that getting to the next level of your identity, of your mission, what you're here to live out is not about more strategy or more output. If you would like to go deeper into that, I had a whole series at the beginning of this year, 2025, about productivity and tying our productivity and our output to our worth. So that's another one I highly recommend. So it's not about that. What it's really about is a regulated body, aligned energy, leadership that comes from overflow and not survival. And that's what I want to talk about in this series. I want to decode the language of your body. I want to talk about rebuilding your capacity and rewiring your operating system through the lens of what I do: functional nutrition, minerals, human design, the nervous system, your frequency field, putting all of these pieces together so that you are shifting from this energy of urgency to actual embodiment, from this energy of pushing and forcing to actually receiving. So I want to dive into episode number 1 of this series. And in this episode, I'm talking about your body as the business plan. So where we're starting today is where everything begins, and it's the language of your body. And this topic, I've talked about this topic many times before in a lot of different podcast interviews I've been on. I've talked about it on my podcast before as well. But it came up for me when I was doing a podcast episode recently, the other day actually. And we were talking about the language of the body, and how this is where everything begins. Because if you don't actually understand the language of your body and the signs and the signals that your body is sending you, that you've got nothing. Right. And I say this all the time, that the health of your business is only as sustainable and viable and healthy as the health of your body. But the other part of that is your health is only as sustainable and viable as is your ability to understand your body. Because if we don't understand our body, if we don't understand the language of our body, how are we supposed to interpret what's going on? We feel the signs and the signals of the things that might be off. How are we supposed to figure out what's going on? So if you want 2026 to look different, to feel different, to be different, you can't build your vision on the same stressed out biochemistry, the same dysregulated nervous system, the same patterns that have kept you in burnout, or these cycles of urgency and hypervigilance and overgiving and all the things, because your body has been whispering, and sometimes I dare say it's screaming at you for a long time, for things to change. And if your body's been whispering to you, it's only a matter of time before it is actually screaming at you. And so in this episode, I want to teach you how to finally understand what your body is trying to say, how to decode your symptoms, your energy leaks, your human design signals, your mineral patterns, and how your body is already telling you exactly what it needs from you, to get to that next level. I want some things to click here for you. So I want to give you a lot of really tangible things to take away with from these episodes. So let's jump into the meat of it here. So I think one of the problems we have when we're trying to decode and understand the language of the body is that a lot of times we're translating everything through this lens of productivity. If we're interpreting rest as weakness, or as like something I have to earn, or it's like a transactional thing. If I'm seeing symptoms as just inconvenient, right? I don't have time for this. This is really inconvenient. If I'm seeing fatigue, or really any symptom for that matter, as a personal failure or like a weakness, this is a problem. And this is how we're interpreting what's happening in the body. Because if that's the way you're seeing your body and you're interpreting what's going on in your body, then your 2026 vision is really being built on a foundation that's already shifting. It's like built on quicksand. It's already cracking. So I want to decode the language of your body through minerals, through nervous system, through human design, through your energetic field, and what it's actually saying. So the the language of the body, so everybody has their own language. Their body has their own language. And it really is such a nuanced thing. Just like our gut's microbiome is as unique as our fingerprint, your human design is just as unique as that, right? So the way your body speaks to you is not going to be the way somebody else's body speaks to them, which is why you can have your neighbor's sister's daughter who did this great diet and all these amazing things happens to her, but then you did it and you're like, oh, I feel like trash, right? Which is why some people who can go and they can do and they feel great, and you try to go and do the same thing in the same way and it doesn't work, right? Our bodies are so different. Bioindividuality is a real legitimate thing. And I want that to be the framework you see this conversation through and understanding the language of the body, because I'm going to give you some things to think about here. But I'm going to give you some options for you to maybe be able to decode as I'm giving you options like, hey, this is what this could mean, right? So I want to dive into some specific symptoms and some things that it could mean. So fatigue. Let's start with fatigue. This is like probably the number one thing women come to me. And I know it's very vague and it's just very vague. So this could mean a million different things. But when you understand how your unique body works, your specific body, when you understand your specific and your unique human design, it gets a little bit easier to interpret it, because now we don't really have to guess. We know it's going to be one of maybe a few things. So possible body messages that it's sending just from a physiological standpoint. Low sodium and potassium, right? These are two minerals that your adrenals use. This is what's helping things in and out of your cells. These are your sodium to potassium ratio on the HTMA is your vitality ratio, like how much vitality do you have left in your cells? And if your adrenals are tapped, you're running on E. You're running on E. And so a low sodium or potassium or a low sodium potassium ratio. This means our adrenals need some love. And if we're going to tie this into human design, which I'll do that in a second, but our adrenals are tied to our root center. So if we want to look at this from kind of two different angles, yes, I want to look at it from a mineral perspective, but I also want to look at it from a human design perspective and understand how you're using the energy in your adrenals. For example, if our adrenals are a pressure center, right? They're pressure to do things, to kind of start things. It's a little bit different from the energy of the sacral, which is like the energy to keep doing things, to continue on doing things. It's like staying power. The root center is kind of that initial spark, if you will, to do things. If you have a defined root center, your pressure is going to be internal pressure, right? It's like an internal thing. I want to do it because I want to do it, right? It's internally led. If it's undefined, it's external pressure. So you're feeling pressure from the outside. You're feeling pressure from other people. You're seeing what other people are doing, like the comparisonitis thing starts to pop up here for an undefined center. You feel pressure because Susie down the street is doing things this way and she's further ahead than me. So I feel like I need to keep up, right? That's the pressure of the undefined center. And so when you understand how to do things using that pressure in the best possible way, that's one of the ways that we're going to help optimize this sodium to potassium. And really your sodium to magnesium ratio is your adrenal ratio, but sodium, potassium, magnesium, all of this is affected by your adrenal. So it all works together. Anyway, we can approach it from two angles when you understand how to use that pressure and how to let go of any conditioning that's there. So using that as an example. Another one I want to talk about is low magnesium. Now, low magnesium is another one that really can be drained by your adrenals, but magnesium is used in 500 to 600 different reactions in the body. So this is another one where we see low magnesium, and I can't say this is exactly why you have low magnesium, but I can say if your adrenals are tapped or your adrenals are in overdrive, that's 100% a huge reason why your magnesium stores are low. So we can say that your nervous system can't downshift, right? So we want to prioritize magnesium. A copper imbalance, super, super common in women. I have a whole episode, you have to go back a while, I have a whole episode about copper, so you can look at that about copper imbalance. But this, typically what this looks like, or what this possible message that your body is sending you is this emotional overwhelm that's draining your energy faster than you can replenish it. Your adrenals is another one that has to do with your adrenals, actually. Your adrenals have to be working really well for you to be able to push out excess copper or just copper in general, really. When we start to have a buildup of copper, it's kind of this It's kind of a chicken or egg situation here sometimes with the copper and the adrenals. But if we're running through, if our adrenals are running in overdrive, you already have this copper imbalance, because some other things can cause copper imbalance. I don't want to go down all the rabbit holes there. But if your adrenals aren't working optimally, your body's not going to be able to get rid of copper as quickly as it needs to. So copper imbalance is going to be really huge. Copper and zinc have a really special relationship. It impacts your hormones and how your body's using and metabolizing things like estrogen. So there's just like a whole snowball effect from there, from the copper imbalance. And then, of course, the last one I want to talk about is a slow thyroid. A slow thyroid on especially looking at it on an HTMA. That's really where I can get the best idea of what your thyroid is doing on the HTMA. And when we're looking at potassium, we're looking at calcium, right? When you have a slow functioning thyroid, your body is basically in conservation mode. Like, it's conserving as much energy as it can. So it's going to slow down your metabolism. It's going to slow down your adrenals. If you have a slow functioning thyroid, there's a 99.99% chance, I would dare say 100, but maybe there's a chance that you have slow functioning adrenals, because your adrenals and your thyroid have to talk to each other. So these are just some of the possible messages your body's sending you when you are feeling fatigue, right? There's thyroid things, there's adrenal things, there's mineral things. There's a lot that could be possible reason what could be going on. Now, when we look at the human design messages, we can start to get a little clearer. And then usually this is when we can start to connect the physical body and be like, okay, this is probably what's going on. So for generators and manifesting generators, when you feel that fatigue, you're using energy on things that your sacral never agreed to, right? You have a lot of staying power as a generator type, my Manny Gens and generators. So when you're feeling fatigue, and I don't mean like the good fatigue where you're like, man, I did a lot today. Like, I feel good. I feel like satisfied. I got all things done. I feel like that's a whole different type of fatigue. This is actual fatigue, like exhaustion. When you're feeling exhausted, fatigue as a generator type, generator or Manny-Gen, you are using energy on things that your sacral never agreed to. You have dismissed, set down, or pushed aside any and all boundaries that you have set, and you are no longer connected to your sacral. That driving force giving you that full body yes or no when you're committing to things. For projectors, when you're feeling that fatigue, you are outputting more than your design can support without recognition, without rest. Remember, projectors are designed to wait for the invitation. They wait for that recognition. Hey, y'all, we'll get right back to the episode. But first, let me ask you this. You've built a vision that others admire. And you've built something that you're really proud of. But behind the scenes, your body feels like it's lagging behind. It just can't quite catch up to your brilliance and your mission that you have. That late night second wind, the foggy mornings, the hormone shifts, the endless push and forcing. You can't strategize your way out of that. And you already know you don't need more supplements. You don't need another supplement stack. You also don't need another side hustle disguised as self-care, because nobody wants to have their health as a side hustle. This is about recalibrating your entire ecosystem. And that's why I created the Quantum Reset, a premium 3-month high-touch healing experience for visionary women who are ready to feel as powerful in their bodies as they do in their business. Inside, we decode your nervous system, your minerals, your hormones. We read your labs like the sacred text that it is, so we have actual answers. And then we pair that with deep energetic recalibration, subconscious release. We use gene keys, we use human design, and true embodied healing. This isn't about fixing burnout, because that's not what we're doing here. This is about becoming the woman whose body is powerful, whose body is completely electric, whose energy, clarity, radiance finally matches the size of her mission. If you know your success isn't meant to cost you your vitality, and you're ready for a science-backed, spirit-led reset, then the Quantum Reset is your invitation. So check the link in the show notes or send me a message on Instagram, and let's bring your body back online with your brilliance. Now, let's get back to the show. And when you are not prioritizing rest, I really find my projectors need more rest than pretty much any other type. When you are outputting more, when you are trying to live as a generator type, which is really common conditioning for projectors and really manifestors, this is your fatigue is going to be your default setting, right? You're outputting more than how you're designed to. There's no other way to say that. Instead of waiting for that recognition, waiting for the invitation, or doing what needs to be done to receive that invitation, the recognition, right? There's one thing I want to say, just like small little caveat thing. Because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day. She's a projector, and she was sending me some questions about her human design, because she has another friend who's into human design, and she was telling her this, that, or whatever. And she was like, well, that doesn't feel right. And so she was asking me, she's like, I'm supposed to be waiting for the invitation, quote unquote, right? Waiting for the invitation, waiting for the recognition. And, her friend that was talking to her about human design was acting like, she said, she's telling me I'm doing too much. Like, I'm not supposed to do that much. But she's like, I feel good with the things that I'm doing. Like, I know my boundaries. I know when I need to take a rest. I also don't want to just sit around twiddling my thumbs waiting for the quote invitation. And I loved this conversation with her, because I feel like so many times people use human design to put themselves into a box, and that's the complete opposite of what human design is supposed to be. And yes, projectors are supposed to wait for the invitation, they wait for the recognition, whatever. But it doesn't mean you have to sit on your heels and twiddle your thumbs. Like, maybe sometimes it means that, but sometimes too, it means taking the aligned action so that you're putting something out there in order to receive an invitation. And yes, there is such a thing as doing too much, but like my friend was saying, she said, I feel good with the work that I'm doing. Like, I know when to stop. I know my threshold. I know that probably after a few hours of like putting in deep work, like 3 or 4 hours, I'm going to need a break. I know it. Like, that's the thing. When you understand your energetic boundaries, you understand how your energy works. There's really no such thing as quote working too much or doing too much, because you're doing it in accordance with your design. Like, that's the whole point. She's not sitting around eating bonbons all day. Like, she's doing the things that needs to be done. And a lot of times the work that she's doing is going to result in receiving that invitation or receiving that recognition. So I just wanted to put that caveat there, because in case a projector listening, that helps you, because I felt like that was such a great conversation to have with my friend. So moving on to manifestors. We're still in fatigue. Sorry, I went down a tangent there. When manifestors are feeling fatigue, this means, because remember, as manifestor, you are the visionary. This means that you're acting through obligation instead of your creative urges. You're forcing those creative phases to come rather than waiting for those creative urges to come. Remember, your creativity comes in waves. You have these rest phases or rest cycles, and you have these creative waves and creative cycles, these doing cycles. So you're acting through obligation instead of waiting for those phases or those urges. For reflectors, your environment is so crucial. And so when you feel fatigued, this is a really good indication that your environment is draining you. This could be your physical environment, like your physical space. This could be the people that you're surrounded by, right? It could be multiple things. So your environment is draining you. The next symptom I want to talk about is anxiety or restlessness. So when we're looking at possible body messages from a physiological standpoint, from the physical body, low magnesium is a good indication. Like, low magnesium is correlated to anxiety or restlessness, because remember, magnesium is the relaxing mineral. So you have, basically, if you're low magnesium, you have no buffering for that stress response. So it's like overstimulation, right? So a lot of times anxiety or restlessness is a result of the low magnesium. You don't have anything to help calm you down, essentially. High copper is another one that could be correlated to anxiety or restlessness. It's kind of this emotional overactivation. So your emotions are overactive. I don't want to say overreacting, but overactive. Things like racing thoughts or sensory overwhelm a lot of times correlates with high copper. Low potassium is another one. Low potassium. Potassium is used a lot with your adrenals and with your thyroid. So remember, those two organs have to talk to each other, your thyroid and your glands, really. Your thyroid and your adrenals. And so when we're low in potassium, there's kind of this instability in your energy, this lack of grounding that can happen. And potassium and sodium are those electric, right? They're electrolytes, two of the electrolytes. So there's this electrical current that has to happen. And so there's this lack of grounding that happens when we're low potassium. And then gut inflammation. I wanted to mention that one as well. Things like bloating, diarrhea, constipation, a combination of all those, sour stomach, like things going on with your gut. When your vagus nerve is dysregulated, which your vagus nerve plays a pretty big role in your stress response and in your relaxation response, you're kind of stuck in this anxiety loop. So naturally, we're going to have inflammation of the gut. Now, when we're looking at it from human design perspective, there's a few different centers I want to talk about here. If you have an undefined solar plexus and you're experiencing, if you're experiencing anxiety or restlessness and you have an undefined solar plexus, like I do, there's a really good chance that you're absorbing emotions that aren't yours. Because when you're absorbing emotions that aren't yours, there's this kind of unstable energy that's floating around you, in your body, in and around you. It's in your aura, it's in your field, and it's impacting you. And it's your mind and your body are trying to discern, like, what is this? Whose is this? What is, right? So anxiety, restlessness can be a really good indication that you're absorbing emotions that aren't yours. And we might need to set some boundaries or kind of do some work to discharge other people's emotions, right? Some just kind of clearing exercises, that kind of thing. If you are experiencing anxiety or restlessness and you have an undefined head or ajna, and I have my ajna undefined. I had to think about that. No, defined ajna. I have my head undefined. If you have one or both of these undefined, basically this means you're trying to solve what isn't yours to solve. And this can lead to a lot of restlessness, anxiety, kind of mental spiraling, right? You're trying to solve stuff that's not yours to solve. If you are feeling this anxiety, restlessness, and you have an undefined root center, I talked about that a second ago, you are operating under pressure. And remember, it's undefined, it's this external pressure. It's this hurry syndrome. I got to hurry and do it because everybody else is hurrying and doing it. I have to hurry and do it because I'm feeding off of somebody else's energy that's making me feel like I have to hurry and do it. So you're operating under that pressure, that external pressure. If you're feeling anxiety and restlessness and you have a defined spleen, specifically defined spleen, basically this means, remember, your spleen is this center for fear. It's a center for intuition, but it's also a center for fear. This means that your fear patterns are running the show. You're letting your fears make the decisions for you. And then lastly, if you have that anxiety, restlessness, and you're a generator or a mani-gen, it's the anxiety of a sacral no that you're overriding. Or it could be a sacral yes that you're overriding. It's a sacral answer that you're overriding. You feel that anxiety because you're going against your design, and it can make you have anxious feelings in your body because you're overriding. I would say especially if it's a sacral no, but I'd say just in general, going against your sacral yes or no is going to make you feel some type of way, right? Let's move on to brain fog. This is another really common one. Probably top two would probably be the fatigue, and then this one, the brain fog, or just trouble focusing. If you don't know what brain fog is and you hear that term, just trouble focusing, trouble thinking, trouble concentrating, that kind of thing. So calcium shell, I have another episode about this. You can go back. This was a couple years ago, but I have a whole episode on calcium shell. It's actually one of my most downloaded episodes on the entire podcast, like hundreds. It actually has thousands at this point, thousands and thousands of downloads of that episode. People were really curious about it. Maybe I'll put it up. I'll repost it maybe before the end of the year so you don't have to scroll back to see it. But anyway, calcium shell. There's a lot of things that happen with the calcium shell, but it's kind of this emotional shutdown and this feeling of cognitive dullness. And it can lead to a lot of brain things. Like I've had clients who thought they had ADHD or ADD because there was so much going on, and it was the calcium shell. Essentially, just to give you a little overview of what happens, essentially as a protective mechanism, when your body's emitting a lot of cortisol, your body starts to pull calcium from your structural elements, meaning your bones, your teeth, and it pushes it out into your cell to create this little protective barrier around your cells. And it can build up in your soft tissues. So eventually it can build up into like around the nerves and stuff in your brain. And that's why we can lead to things like brain fog, emotional shutdown, that kind of thing. Another symptom or another message is low sodium. We talked about low sodium before, but low sodium, typically there's some element of adrenal burnout and some element of mental exhaustion. And when your adrenals are burned out, you're not going to be thinking clearly. You're not going to be thinking clearly. You're not going to be focusing clearly. Your brain is not going to be functioning optimally when you're in burnout. And so low sodium, there's a huge correlation here between brain fog, low sodium, blood sugar instability as well. A lot of times when there's a blood sugar instability, there are possible things like low sodium, low magnesium, cortisol dysregulation. None of that is good for the old brain. So you're going to be experiencing things like trouble focusing and brain fog. So for human design messages, if you have an undefined head and you're experiencing this, basically this means that you're thinking about things that don't even matter. You're thinking about things that aren't yours. You're thinking of things that don't matter to your energy they don't matter to you. And you're probably spiraling around things that don't matter. And so you're making meaning out of things that don't matter. And you can go into that mental spiral real quick. When you have an undefined ajna experiencing the brain fog or the mental fog, trouble focusing, and you have an undefined ajna, typically means that you're in analysis paralysis. Like you're really trying to be certain and you can get stuck in analysis paralysis and everything starts to get foggy at that point. When you're trying to be certain and rather than letting your mind be open to possibilities, and that's true for everybody, right? But especially with an undefined ajna, and it is going to start looping mental exhaustion. Brain fog is the result. For my projectors, if you're experiencing this, basically means that you're forcing an output instead of waiting for the recognition. You're forcing things to happen, and it is a huge drain. Can think of a better word? A huge drain on your mental capacity, right? So of course you're going to have trouble focusing in brain fog. It's a drain on your mental capacity. Now, for my generator types, generators or mani-gens who experience brain fog, typically there's no sacral spark. Like you have overridden your sacral yes or no. You're in something that you either should have said yes to or should have said no to. And so there's no sacral spark, right? The clarity comes from the sacral spark. So if you have the brain fog, it's time to really reassess, right? Where have I set down my boundaries? Where have I gone against my sacral yes or no? And for my manifestors experiencing brain fog, basically kind of going back to what I said before about the rest cycles, you really need to rest before going into that next creative phase or that creative surge, right? The brain fog is asking you to rest. That's what the signal is. It's asking you to rest and for you to be able to prioritize the rest before you go into the next creative surge. Now, I want to go into maybe like one other thing here before I go into the next part here, because I could go all day on all of these, but I want to talk about sleep. I feel like sleep is one that's pretty common for people. So I want to talk about sleep. So if you're experiencing sleep issues, and this could be trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, it could be like I don't feel rested when I wake up. Low magnesium is a really good sign here because again, as the relaxing mineral magnesium is, you can't wind down, right? If you can't wind down, you're not going to get great sleep. So high calcium is another one. We talked about the calcium shell a second ago. It could be a high calcium or it could be calcium shell, which basically is like really, really high calcium. And kind of when your body goes into the shutdown mode, but it's wired underneath, right? It's kind of that wired but tired feeling that can cause a lot of sleep issues. Copper toxicity, this is another thing where we can feel the whole wired but tired. This could be also can cause disruption in sleep circadian rhythm just in general. Waking in the middle of the night, ruminating. Copper and calcium both can affect, especially calcium can affect your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is responsible for kind of circadian rhythm and that sleep-wake cycle. So both of those can cause dysfunction, if you will, on that. And then adrenal dysregulation. So because cortisol is our get up and go hormone, right? And melatonin is our sleepy hormone. And cortisol and melatonin should be going in opposite directions. So when cortisol is going down by the end of the day, our melatonin should be rising. And then when melatonin is lowering as we get to the wee hours of the morning, cortisol should be rising because that's what helps us get up and go. And one of the things I measure on the Dutch test is, two of the things I measure on the Dutch test is cortisol. I'm looking at your cortisol pattern, your cortisol levels, how cortisol is functioning in the body, all those things. I also look at your waking melatonin. And so we can see, like, if we have some issues with circadian rhythm, that's a really good indication. And it also is a really good indication that you have some sort of adrenal dysfunction, adrenal dysregulation. So we have issues with your adrenals. So I would be looking at A, all the minerals that are going to support healthy adrenals. B, I'm going to look at your human design and see how are we using the energy of our adrenals. I'm going to look at your adrenals. I'm also going to look at your ajna because your ajna is also, like I said before, is connected to your pineal gland. So this is affecting your circadian rhythm. So I'm going to look at that. So I'll just take that actually to go into us talking about the human design messages here. So if you have an undefined head or ajna, and you're feeling the effects of sleep issues, or you're feeling like you're having some sleep issues, typically means that you have this mental pressure running in the background. You have this mental pressure running in the background, and it doesn't stop. It's, again, that wired but tired feeling I've mentioned a couple times now. But the mental pressure just keeps your mind spiraling. And so your body can't really calm down. It can't really can't really rest. If you are a manifester experiencing sleep issues, this typically means you're having these energy spikes late at night, and there's some sort of disconnect in how you're dealing with your creative and rest phases and how you're using your energy during the day. And also how you're interacting with your root center and your sacral center. So remember, I said earlier that your root center, this is the center for initiating, for doing things. The sacral center is the center for your staying power. Manifestors are not sacral beings. You have an undefined sacral. So if you have these energy spikes late at night, or you're just having sort of disruptions in your sleep, typically I would say, let's look at how you're using the energy of your sacral. Are you trying to live your life as a generator? Are you doing and pushing too much rather than like really leaning into your rest and creative cycles, right? Do you have an undefined or defined root center? Are you working because of external pressure, right? So we would look at all of those things too. For projectors who have sleep issues, a lot of times there's just overstimulation for you. And so you need to really hone in on winding down rituals and letting go of the energy that you've picked up throughout the day. That's true for everybody, but especially for projectors, you have this really sensitive aura. So overstimulation is going to kind of keep you in a mental spiral and kind of keep you in high energy, hypervigilance, that kind of thing. And then for my generator types and mani-gens, if you are feeling sleep issues or you're feeling restless, this means that you are not physically satisfied. My generators and mani-gens, you should be done at the end of the day and feel like, whew, I did it. I feel satisfied. I did it all. That signature feeling is satisfaction. And if you're not feeling satisfied physically or mentally, like I got everything done, I moved around my body enough today where I feel physically satisfied, I did enough, put enough stuff out there, I feel mentally, you're going to feel restless. It's like pent up energy, like a puppy, like when you don't let a puppy go out in the backyard and get all its energy out, it comes in and it tears up the house. It's like that unsatisfied energy. It's like, it's all built up, it's pent up, I got to get it out. That's what that energy is. And so a lot of times this is affecting sleep. So we want to keep a good eye on that. So that was a long list. I know I didn't mean to go that long on those, but here we are. That was a long list, but I hope that it's allowing you to look at things a little bit different and you'd use that list and really think about, okay, if I'm feeling fatigue, if I'm feeling the sleep issues, I'm feeling the brain fog, it could be like one of these 2 or 3 things. Like these are probably some of the things I want to address or look at. So you can really feel how your physical worlds and your energetic worlds are not separate. They are connected. And your body the language of your body it's speaking to these parts simultaneously. It's speaking to all of these parts at the same time, which is why it's why I do the work that I do. And it's the reason that I put all the pieces together that I do, because you can't speak the language of the physical body without speaking the language of the energetic body. Like it's not 2 separate languages. It's the same language all together. And we can't separate these 2. When we do, is when we feel the symptoms and we can't find relief of the symptoms because I'm only looking at it from the energetic part or I'm only looking at it from the physical part. We have to put those parts together. And that's when it becomes this harmonious orchestra that's playing together. It's all speaking one language, but it's just playing it. So that's when the clarity comes. You can understand the language so much more clearly. So the next thing I want to talk about is we've gone through some of these already, but I want to look at your human design and seeing your human design as a way for us to understand how you hear your body. So for generators and manifesting generators, your body speaks through the sacral. We are sacral beings. So here's how symptoms might show up for you. You say yes because you quote unquote should, not because your sacral told you so and your sacral lit up and was like, yes. Instant fatigue. That's what that means. Instant fatigue. You commit to things without checking your sacral. You don't even tune into it. This is going to lead to resentment. It's going to lead to burnout. That's what that leads to. You stay in a situation where your sacral is totally dead, like your soul feels dead inside of you. Chronic exhaustion. You feel like the soul there's no soul left. Chronic exhaustion. Another example, you push through your projects. Even though your sacral has already been like, yo, I'm done with this. Brain fog, irritability, unstable mood, like that is easily connected to that. So your mantra as a generator type, mani-gen or generators, if it's not a heck yes, my body will shut down. Have that be your new mantra. If it's not a heck yes, my body will shut down. Because the fact is, if it's not a heck yes, then it's a no. It may be a no right now, but if it's not a heck yes in the moment, It's a no. That's just how it goes with the sacral. Now, for my projectors, your body speaks through recognition. Remember, you're waiting for the invitation. You're waiting for that recognition. It speaks through recognition. It speaks through energy conservation because you have this sensitive aura. And it also speaks through bitterness because that's your not self theme. So how does this show up? You're exhausted because you're doing more than your design can support, right? You're trying to act as a generator type. You're not a generator type. You feel invisible. And therefore you feel bitterness. Therefore you feel emotional inflammation. A lot of times immunity issues can come up here. Another example, you're invited into roles that aren't aligned. You're saying yes to invitations that aren't aligned. You immediately feel resentment and bitterness. That not self theme is going to rear its ugly head real fast. And this is going to lead to adrenal burnout easily. Another example, you over manage, you over guide, if you will, because you're not waiting for the invitation. You're giving unsolicited advice to people who aren't ready to listen to it. Your spleen and your solar plexus are immediately overloaded. Your spleen, which is the center for your intuition, right? And your solar plexus, which is your emotional center, you're taking on things. All of it's going to be overloaded. Your mantra as a projector, if I honor my flow, then my brilliance comes forward. If I honor my flow, then my brilliance comes forward. That's what I want you to say. For my manifestors, your body speaks through cycles of phases, of urges, rest cycles. It also speaks through anchor. That's your not self theme. So for my manifestors, here's how this shows up. You have creative surges followed by deep exhaustion. This could be normal. You get irritated when you're controlled or you're slowed down. This is going to show up as physical tension because here's the thing. Manifestors are here to initiate, which means you don't have to wait. You're not waiting to respond. You're not waiting for the invitation. You're not waiting on anything. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. And a lot of times manifestors get in this cycle where they feel like they need it. And so it slows them down. They get really frustrated. It's going to show up as physical tension. And when they feel controlled, you are the visionary. Feeling controlled or restricted or constricted in any way is going to be a huge drain on your energy. And it's going to show up as physical tension. It eventually show up as either aches or pains. It's going to show up as adrenal issues, as inflammation in the gut, inflammation of your body just in general. Another example, you suppress your urges, meaning your creative cycles, your rest cycles. This is going to lead to emotional stagnation, which is going to lead to cortisol dysregulation. It's also going to lead to issues with detoxing in your body, which leads to things like estrogen imbalances, right? Estrogen dominance. Because your body, your emotional center, when you're emotionally stagnated, your emotional center, emotional solar plexus, which is connected to a lot of your detox organs, is not able to work optimally. So your body's not able to detox properly. When it's not detoxing, of course, it's not detoxing toxins, but it's also not detoxing hormones that need to be moved through the body. So this is a huge weight, a huge burden on your things like your liver, your pancreas, your gallbladder, all of those, this emotional stagnation, all because you suppress your urges. Now, one other thing for manifestors, how this shows up. You moved too quickly without informing. So while manifestors, you aren't here to ask for permission or seek validation. You are here to inform before you take action. You inform and then initiate. If you don't inform the important parties involved in your decisions, this is going to lead to conflict, which is going to lead to stress hormone spikes. Now, when you're informing, you're not informing to get permission. You're not informing to get validation. You're just informing so the people involved in the decision, or maybe as a result of the decision, however they're connected to your decision, you want to remove resistance. You want to remove that potential conflict, which can lead to these stress hormone spikes. It's not a way for you to get permission. You're just removing the resistance or the conflict. Now, your mantra for my manifestors out there, my energy comes in waves and I honor every single one. My energy comes in waves and I honor every single one. That's your mantra. Use it. Say it. Okay, reflectors. Last but not least, of course, my reflectors, any reflectors listening, your body speaks through your environment and through your lunar cycle. So waiting, right? There's a cycle to how you receive information, receive answers. So how this shows up for you. When you feel drained, you are around the wrong people or in the wrong environment. So this could be, again, your physical environment. It could be the people around you. That's also your environment. That can make you feel drained. If you're feeling confused, like I'm not clear on the decisions and I feel like I've waited long enough to be clear on the decision. This means you're feeling too much pressure from other people's identities. Reflectors have a completely open, there's no defined centers in your chart. So you are absorbing much energy and information around you. So if you're feeling confused and overwhelmed, you're taking on too much from other people, right? If you're feeling inconsistent, this is pretty normal because you're a lunar being. You're not really supposed to be all that consistent, really. If you're feeling symptoms shifting throughout the months, this is typically, I would say, tied to the gates, right? To the moon gate. So a lot of times you are going to feel symptoms shifting throughout the month, depending on where you are and which center of the body it's in, right? But I think the thing I want to leave reflectors here with is to remember, and you can say that, use this as your mantra, that you're designed to flow, not forced. And you can say that I am designed to flow, not force. There's so much fluidity in a reflector's energy field. And so just being able to own that is going to be so powerful for you. All right. I hope this helps. I do want to say something else here before I move on to the next episode. I have so much to say on these. I want to talk about rest for a second because I feel like this is tied to things that we're talking about. Because all of these physical symptoms that we're talking about, they're only showing up because of some energetic thing that's going on in the body, right? I've talked about this in almost every episode. Everything physically happening in the body has some sort of emotional, energetic root cause. And I really feel like the reason I want to talk about this is something else that didn't trigger me in a bad way, but like it triggered the conversation in the podcast episode I mentioned earlier. We're talking about rest. And I think while we all have our own unique core wounds, which you can learn by understanding your human design, by the way, and your gene keys, but we all have our own unique core wound. But I think collectively as women, our common core wound is this piece. It's about earning rest. And too many of us only allow rest when we've, quote, earned it, right? When something is done or it's checked off or when something is accomplished. We have to earn it. We have to do something. It's very transactional, right? I have to do this to get it. And this is the energetic equivalent of saying that my body exists to serve my productivity. And that's not true. Your body does not exist to serve your productivity. Your worth is not tied to your productivity. And that belief will always create burnout every single time. Because your body doesn't speak productivity. That's not the language of the body. The language of your body is not productivity. The language of your body is presence. And how often have we sacrificed presence for productivity? I get emotional thinking about how much of my life has been me just going on productivity and not going with presence. Rest is not a reward. First of all, rest is required. You can't have winter. You can't have spring without winter, right? Everything has to rest before it can be renewed. You can't have day without the night. We have to rest and renew, right? Rest is not a reward. Rest is the reset. Rest is the recalibration of your frequency field. Rest is where your sacral gets recharged and gets lit back up. Rest is where your intuition speaks to you and gets loud. Rest is where your minerals stabilize and your hormones and your body's repairing itself. Rest is how your body prepares for expansion. There's no such thing as constant expansion. There's no such thing. I saw this quote the other day that the imagery of it, just because I've been so into like my gardening stuff and like plants, and I like redid my backyard and did all these things in the garden, but it was about flowers, and it was saying like flowers don't bloom the entire year. Flowers bloom and then they die and they come back, right? You can't expect a flower to stay a blossom forever. That's just not how it works. And that's how we work as humans as well. It's not a series of constant expansion. Rest is how your body prepares for expansion. It's expansion, contraction, like that's life. And so if you can only rest when something is finished or because you've earned it, your nervous system will never feel safe. Your body will never feel safe. And you will feel those symptoms popping up over and over and over and over again. It's inevitable because your body cannot heal in that state. If your nervous system doesn't feel safe, your body doesn't feel safe to heal. Your hormones can't balance out. Your gut can't balance out. Your brain fog can't go away. Your aches and pains can't go away. Your sleep isn't going to regulate. None of that is going to regulate because your nervous system doesn't feel safe. So I want to leave you with this. I want you to do this kind of energetic audit, if you will, on yourself, because I want you to see kind of where you are in this. Where are the symptoms showing up? How can you work to decode these symptoms? Is this piece about rest showing up and the reason why your physical symptoms are showing up in the body, right? Your productivity versus rest quotient, right? If that is off. So I want you to ask yourself, where is my body communicating through fatigue, cravings, irritability, mental fog, sleep issues? Where is my body communicating? Where are the symptoms showing up? What is my body communicating through that? So there's two parts to that. I want you to take an audit, an inventory of any symptoms you're experiencing. And I want you to be honest with yourself. Symptoms that you've passed off of like, oh, this is normal. This is totally fine. It's not. It doesn't have to be. So symptoms that you find like this is, maybe it's something that's blaring that's like, holy cow, get this, like stop it. Or it could be like, oh, this is kind of annoying. Like I really wouldn't want to, I don't want to have to live with it. Like be honest with yourself. And then ask yourself, what is my body communicating through these symptoms? Which human design center is speaking through this symptom? Is this sensation a misalignment or a boundary violation? Maybe it's both. Where am I tying my worth to output instead of presence? And how is that impacting my physical body? And maybe most importantly, what rest practice can I do today that doesn't produce anything? What rest practice can I do today that doesn't produce anything? Meaning, what can I do today, life, that isn't me being productive, that isn't me like checking something off a list, that isn't me being in mental energy? What can I do today that literally doesn't produce anything? I'm going to give you some examples. This could be going out and standing in the grass, maybe putting your body in the sun. This could be reading like a fiction book just for fun. Maybe read a chapter in your favorite fiction book that you haven't picked up in a while. This could be like, for me, I like to be out in the garden. Like I'll go outside and I do things in the garden. Maybe I'm planting something or I'm picking weeds or I'm putting something in a pot or something. I don't know. Maybe it's painting. Maybe I also went through like this puzzle phase. I was doing puzzles all the time, right? Now that does produce something, but there's no reason for it, right? It's not like this is like an internal reward for me, I guess, of like, oh, this is so satisfying putting things together. So it is producing a physical thing, but it's not to be productive, right? I'm not being productive by putting a puzzle together. So what rest practice? Because I think sometimes we think rest has to be this thing where you're just like laying down staring at the ceiling, which can be actually a really good rest practice, especially if your body is adverse to resting. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be a rest practice. Maybe it's, maybe you go for a walk around the block. Maybe you listen to like classical music for 15 minutes or something, right? Something that doesn't produce anything because I'm not being productive. I challenge you to do that. And then I want you to choose one of these, either a 5-minute sacral check-in, and especially for my sacral beings, checking in with like, what is my sacral saying to me right now, right? Maybe you choose, the other thing you could choose, a 3-minute nervous system grounding. So maybe this is, I mentioned earlier, going out and stepping in the grass. That's a grounding practice. Maybe it's just doing some deep breathing. Maybe it's doing like box breath. Maybe it's just sitting still and closing your eyes for 3 minutes. Maybe it's a moment of rest with absolutely no purpose. Maybe you're just sitting there staring out the window, right? There's no purpose of that. So this is where your rebirth begins. And I want this series to be the beginning of that for you. This is an energetic reset, but I want this to be, like I have in the title, Recode Your Body, Your Leadership, and Your Life. I want this to be a recoding. And a lot of times when we're talking about recoding, there's an unlearning and relearning that has to happen. There's a learning, unlearning, learning, and relearning that has to happen. And so a lot of times, in order to get to the bottom of these annoying, pesky little physical symptoms that we're feeling on the body, there's a learning that has to happen because I want you to learn what is happening, why it's happening. And there's an unlearning because now I know what's happening and why it's happening. And there's a pattern. There's either a thought pattern, a belief, whatever it is that's causing these physical things to show up. Now I have to unlearn that and relearn how I'm designed to believe, think, be, etc. Does that make sense? So I want this to be a recoding and a relearning for you. And I want you to really, maybe you go back and take notes on this. I want you to really let there's only 3 episodes in this series for that reason. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information. I know there's a lot in this one, but I'm keeping it in a small enough package in 3 episodes so that you can really let this sink in the last month of the year, in the last month of 2025. We are finishing out a year and we're stepping into another year. And yes, we could leave this year and step into next year, be exactly the same person, and we would be just fine. But if you're here and you're listening to this, then I know you're not here to step into 2026 as the same version of that you are right now. You're just not, or you wouldn't be listening to this. And if you're craving support in helping to understand and decode your own the language of your body, your minerals, your energy field, your human design, your nervous system, all these pieces, That's what I do. That is the work that I do. And there are plenty of opportunities for you to step into that. And you can claim a spot in 2025 for 2026. Or if you're listening this in 2026, it's never too late, right? You start now. There's the energy reboot sessions. I have my energy recalibration sessions. I have the quantum reset. But this is how you rebuild your operating system. And if you want to rebuild your entire operating system for 2026, the quantum reset is what you want, because this is everything. All the big, deep pieces of my work put together. It's your body, your energy, your identity finally all gets on the same team. This is like the deep immersion that you're looking for. It's the quantum reset. But if you want some bite-sized pieces of this just to like propel you forward, I have smaller options as well. I'll put some links in the show notes for you, but I want you to show up here for episode 2 and 3 of this, because we're going to go deeper into a couple aspects of this. I'm going to bring in some different conversations to kind of building your body and your identity. And this is going to be a really good part of 2025 for you, and a really big part of this month, really big part of us finishing the year together. So thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode.